Hey guys, welcome back. Rick the Honest Mechanic here, and we've got our seized up pressure washer back up on the bench. A little while ago I did a short video on this actual pressure washer. I didn't actually tear it apart. I also put out a post there. So before we get any further, I want you guys to go down in the comment section and tell me what you think it might be. There was four possible answers that I had down there. It can either be it's seized up on the crankshaft, it's seized up on the piston or the rings, it could be the washer pump itself, or could be bent valves. Comment down below, let me know what you think. But without wasting any more time, let's take this apart and figure out exactly what's wrong with it. Alright, so let's start by just removing the obvious here. Let's get rid of this hose. And for those of you who aren't, let's say, up to date with what's happened here, I picked up this pressure washer as is for, I forget exactly how much I paid for it, but I got a really good deal on it. Almost a steal of a deal, I guess you would call it. But it is completely seized up, and I'm not exactly sure. I'm taking a gamble on it. Hopefully I can get it running again. But what I did find is that there is no oil in the crankcase. So let's get all of this stuff out of the way, because I think the easiest way to attack this is going to be just to simply remove the engine from the plate here, and we'll have all sorts of room. I got a feeling this one's going to be a little bit tricky here. Kind of balance the engine. Take it slow. Oh. Oop, that's why. There we go. We got our suction hose still attached to one of the... Everything's falling. Suction hose is still attached to pump. Alright, I think the next thing to attack will just be to remove the pump. And we'll see... Oh, that's tight. If perhaps the pump is what's completely seized up. I'm not sure if you guys ever use these internal wrenches with a little ball on them, or these Allen wrenches, but they're fantastic for this kind of stuff. I mean, look at the angle I got here, and I can still pull it right out. I don't know if I'd be putting a lot of load on there, a lot of torque, but for zipping these out, it's perfect. Now let's see what we got here. Well, it's not seized onto the shaft, so that's pretty good. And the key is also falling out. I wonder how I'm going to be able to turn. Oh, I can turn that. You guys hear that? I can turn that. I'm not sure if you can see it, but just so you know, key's pointing on this side right now, completely 90 degrees away, so there's nothing wrong with the pump, or at least I don't think there is. Okay, so let's put that aside. And for those of you who may have any doubts that there was any oil in here, I'm going to crack this loose and I'm going to open it up and see what's out there. And I'm so confident, in fact, I'm not even putting a drain pan. I really hope this doesn't bite me in the butt. Okay, well there's a drip, but I mean, really? That's not a lot of oil. Not enough to keep it running anyway. I hope that's all it was. Either way, I mean, I think I'm out like 50, 60 bucks. I forget exactly what I paid for it, but... Okay, so moving on. I think my best way to attack this is to just remove... I've never had one of these apart, I won't lie to you, but these small engines are all normally pretty simple. I'm going to pull the crankcase plate right out of the back here. There is a seal. So we're going to try and be careful and not tear any of that. So if we happen to be able to put it back together, we won't have to buy that. But pretty sure this is just sealed with some RTV. Yeah, I think that's what that is right here. Gray RTV, so it kind of blends in with everything. But let's take these, what is it, 5 or 6 bolts out. And we're going to gently yet aggressively pop this cover off. Okay, it was actually more gentle than aggressive. Came off pretty easily. whenever you're doing something like this, I always try and pry against something near a bolt hole. You try and avoid on the mating surfaces here, because if you mar these up, you stand a good chance of having a leak in the future. Okay, so that's really not much oil. So let's grab the camera and let's take a zoom inside here. Alright, so what do we got? If I lean it back just a little bit, we got maybe a couple ounces of oil in here. But what I do see is very shiny oil. So, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't look like it ran for very long, if it ever did. But again, is it possible? You know what I left out of the equation here? Is maybe, what if the recoil would actually be the culprit? I mean, maybe we should examine this. I mean, it seems like it wants to work. You know what I mean? But it just doesn't, it just, I don't know. I don't feel like it would be that. Alright, so let's take out the cam here. This is your cam, by the way, down below. You got your gear driven off of the crankshaft. There's your little cam, and then of course you're going to have your little push rods. They're going to want to fall out. And there are some timing marks here. So that dot will also have to correlate with the dot down here whenever we put it back together, if we do. But let's do one thing at a time here. And let's examine the parts as we take them out. And really not much wear on any of these. Like the lobes are just fine. That's kind of interesting. What about our crankshaft? Does that move at all? Oh, we got some side to side play. That's kind of good news. Goes in and out. Huh. Looks like it wants to rotate. What I'm going to do now is kind of totally wrong. You shouldn't normally do it this way, but I'm going to crack the connecting rod loose from the crankshaft with a wrench. And again, that's not normally how you take stuff apart, but when it's all seized up, you kind of have really no choice. Let's see if we can free it up here. There's the other one. Let's turn this towards you guys again so you can see it. Let's see if we can pull there we go. Oh, well, that, my friends, I have to admit, is a super shiny cap. Look at that. There's absolutely no scarring on that, or no scoring. Okay, so if you guys, I won't lie to you, I thought for sure this was going to be the problem. I thought the crankshaft was going to seize itself right to the connecting rod. So if you thought that was it, well, like me, you're kind of wrong. So, again, what could it be? So now, well, look at this. So we know, we know our bearing on the other side is rotating just fine. So now let's see. What about our, oh yeah. So it's not our recoil. We're getting closer. Definitely not our recoil. So you know what that leaves us? Leaves us with, you guessed it, either the piston or the rings have been completely Caesar salad. See what I did there? Onto, well, the bore of the engine. So, I think we can still free it up. I really do. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clean up a little bit of the mess down below in the crankcase. Look at this stuff. It's so yucky. That was a clean rag. I'm going to pull the spark plug, and we're going to put some penetrating oil, and we're going to let it sit, maybe overnight, and then we're going to come back and see if we can maybe persuade it with a dowel pin or something, like a chunk of wood. How's the spark plug set up? Yeah, the spark plug is set up almost straight up and down onto that piston, and we might actually be able to break it free. All right, it's actually an 11/16. A little bit odd for spark plug size, but I'm used to either 5/8 or 13/16. Anyways. Well, what do we have? We have a Kohler spark plug. I mean, it is a Kohler engine. So I guess Kohler started buying spark plugs from someone and putting their name on them. Because I'm pretty sure Kohler doesn't actually make their own. Unless they do. And if they do, comment below. Prove me wrong, please. I always like to learn. So now, let's come up with some kind of a concoction here so that we can hopefully free this up. Well, I don't have too many different choices of penetrating oils, and again, I'm not sponsored by anybody, just so you know, but I do have some Breakthrough, I do have some WD-40. I don't think WD-40 will do the job here, because I think it's a little bit too thin. Oh, wait a minute, maybe that's what we need. Maybe, hold on. What the heck, let's throw that into the mix as well. So we got a WD-40, our Breakthrough, and our Crown KP53 penetrating oil. I do have to admit I like this stuff quite a bit. Not only because it's made in Canada, but for what I've used, it's done a really great job. So let's do the whole trifecta of penetrating oils here. Let's let it sit overnight. We'll come back here in the morning or tomorrow night because I do work, and then see if we can free this up, because I'm kind of interested. So here goes the KP53. Let's change it over to our WD-40. There we are. Good stuff. Good stuff. And last but not least, our Breakthrough. Okay. And I wonder if we can see anything coming through this end. Not really, nothing yet. But just for fun, without using too much force, what if we were to take, oh, I don't know, an extension that fits down the hole? That's too big. Let's try and find something that just to say fits down the hole, and we just give it a little bit of love tap. Alright, so I've got a 1/4" extension. It does fit down the hole, and got a rubber mallet. I don't want to hit this too hard, because if I hit it too hard, I got a really good chance that I'll poke a hole right in the middle of the cylinder. So I don't recommend you guys trying this, because I don't think it's going to really work, but I'm just going to see if by just lightly tapping it, it decides to move the piston down. And let's make sure that the connecting rod isn't going to jam up against anything to give us the best odds of making this piston free. If this doesn't work, we're going to let it sit overnight and maybe try something else tomorrow. But let's just give it a try. You know what, guys? I think it's actually moving, honestly. I don't know, I don't have a measurement. You know what? I think I'm going to make a little line here. Let's put a mark flush with the bottom here. You guys see that? Oh, maybe not. Alright, so we got a line right down here. I'm going to give it a few taps and we'll see if we're gaining any progress. Because it kind of feels good, really. Just to give myself the best chance again, I'm going to extend so I can hit it from up here. And I can control the pressure I'm putting down on this. Any progress? think there's a little bit. It's like very slow. Let's try this a little bit more. Oh, that is definite progress. That is definite progress. Oh, it's moving. It's moving. Guys, we freed it up. It's the trifecta. The trifecta worked. That's awesome. Look at that, the piston's all the way down. Okay. I wonder, I won't be able to take it out now. This is exciting. I can't believe that actually worked. I wasn't sure. I won't lie to you. I didn't think that was 100% going to work. I thought for sure if I went too hard, I was going to poke a hole to the top. But maybe it was just to say caught. Okay, so I know I can definitely not remove the piston as it is. And I kind of want to see what the cylinder looks like. But maybe my best bet at this point is to, because now I got it almost all the way down, is to maybe push it back up and see. Because then if it's all the way up, I'll be able to see partially, I guess, the cylinder. Okay, let's, I wonder if I can turn this. What do we got there? Okay. Oh, Jesus, it went all the way up just fine on its own. And now, okay, will it come back down? Oh, guys, check this out. It's moving so nicely. It's moving so nicely now. Look at this. I can pull the piston down with my hands. Oh, that is so cool. Okay, so let's push it all the way up. That's as far as it goes up. Let's take another good examination of what's inside here without maybe having to take it all apart, because maybe, just maybe, we may have got lucky. Alright guys, so here we are looking at the bottom side of that cylinder. A little bit hard to see, but there is a little bit of scoring, as you can tell. But if I throw my finger in there, there's no gouging at all. There is wear though, like you can see it, but that's it. You just see it. You can't feel any of it. Sorry guys, it's the best view I can get. I don't have a borescope, but maybe that'll be my next purchase. However, I do feel pretty strongly about this. I got some lights everywhere in there trying to get to the best possible view here. But I think I'm going to get away with this. We're going to put the crank, the cap back on the connecting rod. And I think put obviously the push rod back in place because they fell out from me moving everything around. And retime it, and I don't know, maybe give it a shot. Alright guys, so I've got the connecting rod all back together. We got some rotation on the engine, which is a great news. You know, the piston's going up and down. Haven't gone too far because I don't know if this is an interference engine or not. What I want to show you guys now is how we're going to retime this. So remember I was talking about some timing marks. So actually if I highlight it for you guys, just to make it easier, and actually a little easier for me too. So right here, oh come on, there's a little bit of oil on there. Right there is one mark that is on the gear of the crankshaft, and the next mark that we're going to line up is on the cam gear. So it's actually quite simple. I'm going to try and do this with one hand, but I've lubricated the lobes with some assembly lube, and I'm going to switch hands with there you go, I'm right-handed, so We're going to just drop this in place. We got our push rods back, minus the one over here. I'm going to put that up from the top, because I'm not sure which one it fell out of. But we're going to just kind of slide the camshaft. We're going to line it up down below here so that it fits into, might have to move the crankshaft just a bit, get the rod out of the way, just like that. So the camshaft fits just like that, and then the trick is here to try and almost mesh these so that when you do happen to turn the engine over, that they completely line up 100%. And as you can tell, we're off. So that's easy enough. We're gonna, because now we're meshed and we're in the lobe, I'm just gonna, that's one tooth, still not quite right. And that's another tooth. And now as you can tell, perfectly timed. So we know that the valves are gonna open when they need to be. So without going too far now, I'm gonna remove the valve cover, plop this little guy back in here, right here, and see if everything rotates freely. All right, so let's pull this valve cover out of the way. Really? Well, that's kind of silly. Come on, Kohler. This reminds me of that Subaru generator all over again. Who designs these things? Definitely not a mechanic, because this would be super accessible. There we go. Okay, what more do we need to remove from this? Okay, that's gone. Okay, and again, with a little bit of brute force and ignorance. No gaskets. Well, what the heck? I would have had to pull this off anyways, because as you can tell, the one rod that was in there wasn't where it was supposed to be, because it has to sit on that little ball off the rocker arm. You want to make sure these are all lined up as well. Okay, so we got some clearance. Okay, now big question is, without anything else in there, is it going to do a full rotation, or is it going to stop where it was stuck? Because if that means, if it stops, it could mean that there's some material piled up in the cylinder that we might have to remove. So let's hope for the best here. Oh no, it's locked up again. Oh, went a little bit further. Oh, can I go backwards? Oh, really? Okay, so we powered through it. We might just be overcoming the valve springs, but normally they're not that stiff. Alright, so clearly it's the next day, wearing a different shirt, and I've had a little bit of time to think about this. You know, for an extra little bit of work, few more bolts to pull, why don't we just remove the head and have a really good look down that cylinder? Alright guys, so I've taken a minute here just to kind of put away some tools because it was starting to look like a mess, as you could tell. And if there's anything that's kind of important when you're opening up an engine like this, or you're doing any type of work for that matter, just keep yourself organized. Just makes things so much easier. Anyways, going back to what everything looks like, and the head is in really nice shape. The valves are okay. Everything is looking pretty kosher here. I don't see any problems. And again, looking at the top of the piston, if we clean it up a little bit, everything looks really nice there as well. I mean, it's quite shiny. You can tell there doesn't have much use. So let's see if we can rotate it over a little bit here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Clearly not the same story on the cylinder. So I'm kind of happy I did this, because this is going to give me an opportunity to clean it up. Yeah, it's got more scoring up there. It's pretty nasty. All right, so what do we got here? Ooh, that kind of flew right out of there, didn't it? Oh, that's bad. That's where our binding is coming from. So on one side, we've got a piston that looks pretty good. I mean, wipe away some of this crown / breakthrough / WD-40 concoction, and it's not too bad at all. However, flip it around, and sadness. We've got a chunk of piston missing, so that's not cool. I mean, in all reality, for what I'm trying to do with this thing, it's just to pressure wash some equipment for videos and stuff like that. I mean, I got it for next to nothing. So I think, let me think about this for a minute. And this is what the cylinder looks like after giving it a quick wipe down. You can definitely tell there's some pretty good score marks. But then, hello, there's the other chunk of aluminum that's missing from the piston. Zoom in on that a little bit for you guys. Everything's starting to make sense. If this thing was ran without oil, completely makes sense that the top half of the piston, which has no lubrication at that point, starts to get hot and starts to want to kind of weld itself to the sidewall of the cylinder. What I find really interesting and really impressive is that crankshaft doesn't have any marking at all either. And again, that's the same deal with the marks, or the lack of marks, on our journal here, on our connecting rod. So that's pretty cool, I suppose. But I mean, where do we go from here? Alright, so after a little bit of deliberation back and forth on what I can do and what I should do with this engine, I'm going to go do the opposite of what I would normally do. Normally I would put in a new piston, new rings, and I would probably have the cylinder honed out with the next oversize, because that would make sense. That's the proper way to do it. But I don't want to do that, because I want to experiment here and find out what exactly would happen and how long it would last, because I really don't have a big investment in here. And I think you guys would also be interested in finding out what would happen if I simply just clean up this piston. I'm just going to use a little bit of emery cloth, make sure there's no rough edges on this. The rings, going to maybe clean them up as well. And I'm going to hone out the cylinder simply with a stone and maybe a ball hone, just to give some cross hatching, get rid of some of the damage, and of course get rid of that aluminum. That's going to be done with a little bit of muriatic acid. But after that, I'm going to put it back together and I'm going to see how it runs. So I hope you guys stay tuned for that, because for now, that's going to be the end of this video. I think in the next video, you're going to see all of this back together. I'm not quite sure. I might actually show a little bit about, the details on how I put it back together, and maybe some of the honing processes and the cleanup that I did. But we're going to do a compression test then. I know I said I'd do a compression test earlier, but I honestly don't think we'd get very good results with all of this damage. So tune in then. But for now, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell me if I'm completely silly. And again, I'm telling you, this is not the proper way to rebuild it. But I'd really enjoy to hear some of the comments you guys got out there. What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to last? Or is it just going to grenade in 10 seconds? Anyways, until next time, take care.